Coast to Coast. Presented by Wandering Wheels in cooperation with Taylor University. Narration Bob Davenport, photography Dan Boyd, graphics Paul King. This coast-to-coast trip will start on the Pacific Ocean, about 30 miles north of San Diego, California. The light-colored spots in the map represent the states through which the trip will travel. Nearly 3,000 miles all the way across America. Come down to the little village of Solana Beach. And this is the point from which we will start our tour. Off-road vehicle activity prohibited. That means if you've got a motor on it, you can't travel this territory, and these bikes are welcome. Catering truck stopped to give us a little supplies, and we're breaking our teeth on this particular trip early on good back roads. Bumped into a lawyer from Chicago who had come to California to do a first, learn how to hang glide at age 60. Good feeling to see him lift off the ground. He's doing a first. The Wandering Wheels are doing a first. We're going to try to go across America on the new fat tire bike, the all-terrain bike, without touching any pavement. Starting in California, we'll make our way into Arizona on the first leg of the trip. And most of this will be in dirt. Slow, narrow, winding road, and that normally means up. You can see that we're the only people on the road here, and this is one of the distinct advantages of being on the dirt tire bikes. California sun causes us to feel very invited as we come to Yale Swimming Hole. A swimming hole that's carved out of granite by Mother Nature. And these are the kind of things you don't find along the highway. Desert. We've made our way in about 3 days' time now to the tough Borrego Springs area. And by the time they coast on the bikes down into the desert, it'll be almost 110 degrees. These bicycles are very sure-footed. The fatter tires give them a surer footing on the highway, kind of like little motorcycles. The truck we call Big Blue has almost 250,000 miles on it, and it has escorted young people all over America, carrying their sleeping bags, cooking goods, spare parts. Put a red filter on the camera just to give you a little bit of a feel as to how hot it is out here. We'll spend several days now in this scorching California, Arizona desert. Look at these trails. Now, this is what we had hopes of finding as we ventured out across America on the dirt tire bikes. But these petered out soon in the venture. One of our writers was very creative, brought along an umbrella that he provided a little bit of a convertible effect on the bike. The gals were cutting off the clothing to get more sun, and the guys were doing just the opposite, covering up their skin. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of the difference between a girl and a boy. And of course, we think the bicycle is the only way to go. We're looking down on the lowly motorcycle riders and just kind of wishing for them the same grand experience we're having doing it ourselves. Los Angeles, 160 miles away, so we're making some progress. Now, interestingly enough, off to your left here, there's a highway. We could be out on the highway and making good time, but our desire was to travel in as much dirt as we could as we made our way across America. Look at the sand eating up these tires. Like walking in snow, you take a step and lose two. And we knew that we'd probably met our nemesis now as we'd come into this softer sand, and we were soon to discover that half of America is desert, and we're going to be in a lot of sand and probably have to opt for some highway travel. Arrow points us on down the road. Flat tires are common, even though we don't have nails and glass to contend with. We have thorns and jagged rocks. A young boy from the inner city, and I'm sure he is thinking now, boy, did I make a mistake signing up for this tough off-road bicycle trip. This little gal is wasting away to a mirror image of herself. In fact, I think she's looking over the ladies' room. She got into the shade and had to take a breather before she went inside, and that is being tired. This fellow's writing his last will and testament. This gal's so tired, she's phoning hers in. And you know it's hot when you try to drink water and can't even find your mouth. It's hot enough for us that we take a little sympathy out on the animals who have to be every bit as uncomfortable as we are. Look at the heat coming off the desert floor. Still honoring dirt. We could go to the interstate. We could travel a lot faster, but our commitment was to ride in as much dirt as possible. And soon this ran out, and all of a sudden we had to go to the highway and run shoulder to shoulder with the big guys. And this isn't nearly as entertaining, but we knew that now we had to compromise our tour a little bit. That's not the camera or the projector. That's the way we feel. Finally get our eyes in focus, and the days are getting longer now. Muscles getting tireder. We had the hopes of going all the way across in dirt, and we thought if that were the case, maybe we could even bypass the bridges. We brought along these inner tubes in hope of literally swimming across the rivers with our bikes. An aqueduct that has been built from the Colorado River down to Tucson, Arizona. They haven't put water in it yet, so we've made it into a roller coaster. When you run out of gas on a bike, the best place to go is the same place you go for gas for a car, to a filling station. Fill it up, please. Regular. Salome, Arizona. Got a special little place in history. They've done a famous film here. Salome is heaven to us. Don't drive like blank through it. And of course, out here in the desert, the cars will really zoom along. And the last person you want to ask for some very specific information about a dirt road is a man who's had one too many. That fella couldn't even find his way home, much less tell us where there was a dirt road we could travel eastward on. We slipped into Arizona, and the giant saguaro cactus is soon to become our neighbor and our friend as we make our way through this beautiful Arizona desert. We're headed for a high mountain area now, and we could move on paved roads if we wanted to. Yarnell is a small town about a mile in the air, and we have opted for this Jeep road. It took about 4 hours to get up, and we really doubted our sanity when we got to the top. But it was worth it. That motorcycle sure looked good when we got up there. Skull Valley store, small town not too far from Prescott, Arizona, about 20 miles from Prescott. We asked this rancher lady if she knew of a dirt road into Prescott from Skull Valley, and she pointed us to one. This road that we're going to travel was a delightful road. It had been used by the copper mining people. And the copper prices were down and the trucks weren't running. And we had the road all to ourselves. Wonderfully manicured. And what a delight to have 20 miles of dirt up and down and round and about, and literally king of the road here. This fella got in the wrong line. Kind of interesting that he's not able to match CCs with him. Pretty discouraging to be driving a van and have a bicycle in behind you honking to pass. Now here's a good way to demonstrate how tough these all-terrain bikes are. On the skinny-tired highway bikes, you really couldn't do this with them, like play chicken or follow the leader over terrain this tough. But these bikes will hold together before your body will go. And good testimony of that is our man who's coming on down the hill. Jimmy, watch out for that rock down there, man. Oh, boy. Hope he doesn't land in a cactus pile. Bring him over here. We'll clean him up. Jerome, Arizona. At the turn of the century, a very sophisticated mining community. Has long since become a ghost town. So we make our way on through Jerome. Bring our friend Jim back to the drawing boards. Hopefully he'll be able to pick up some skills here. And uh-oh, there he goes again. The same guy's hitting the deck. Boy, that's getting to be old hat for him. We'll clean him up again. We thought we were the only ones that were hitting the deck, but our skateboarding friend here showed us that even those with four wheels have problems. Oak Creek Canyon is your home now. It's not a national park, but every bit as pretty as our national parks. It'll take you all the way up to Flagstaff, Arizona. The dog you're seeing here, his name is Zion. Zion literally was purchased in Zion National Park a year before this trip, and we brought him along as our trip dog. We thought this would be the first dog to go coast to coast under his own power. He died in about 5 miles, got blisters on his paws, and he quit. What a big sissy. He said, this is the only way to do it, guys. Cold mountain stream, and there's only one thing better than this. We said, what's that, Zion? He said, upside down on your back. Of course, Zion pointed us to a nice little stream, and we all followed suit and cooled our bodies and really received some refreshment from this lovely mountain stream in Oak Creek Canyon. A friend that we've learned to appreciate as we've traveled through this area owns some good property here, and he always invites us in to use his apple orchard and his facilities as we make our way out of Oak Creek and up to Flagstaff. These kind of people have helped make our tours year after year so very, very meaningful. So that's our home that night and the next morning, where we have a time of devotion and singing, and then take off into a brand new day. Moving into Indian territory now. Now, we've crossed through this area on several occasions, but never had the privilege of really moving off the highway and into the territory where the Indian lives and where he's really at his best. Navajo land. And we were made to feel very welcome. These little guys sitting out along the side of the road, and there wasn't a home within sight. This is their backyard. Well, what an area for young kids like this to grow up in. Horny toad, see a lot of these in the desert. The animals normally roam at will. Very few fences out here. Navajo who has a PhD in education. First Navajo elected to the Arizona State Senate. He said, I voted against an environmental act. They wanted to cut out smoke. And I asked him, how in the world are my people going to communicate if we can't use smoke? Well, he received a lot of flack on that one from the press. Delightful fella. And of course, this really has the ring and the look of Indian territory. You can almost feel like you're in a John Wayne movie here, with the settlers moving in the valley and the Indians up on the mountain ridge. Leather artists who are plying their trade, hitchhiking across America, selling their goods, and just a way of life for them. And a butterfly making its way across America. We're happy to see the sign, pavement ends. Yay, we're back on dirt again. We're going to be eating a lot of dust now. This is the one disadvantage of riding on dirt roads in traffic. And of course, the trading posts provide us with our opportunity of picking up snacks, candy, and pop. Caution, extremely rough road, next 21 miles. Travel at your own risk when wet. We weren't sure what that meant, but we realized that it wasn't due to rain. It was going to be due to a watering truck. Hey guys, we're already muddy and dirty. We might as well get in it. And that they did. Back to the beautiful dirt roads that go rolling up and down and around and about. These three boys coming ahead are 15 years of age, and all three of them kind of working out some special problems in their lives. And what a great way to minister to young guys who just need to blow out the carbon and get out and just test themselves. So much of the Wandering Wheels is about this business. Window Rock, Arizona. This is the capital of the Navajo Nation. The opportunity of mixing the flags of the Wandering Wheels with that of the Navajo Nation. Picked up some good information concerning their own concern for their people and their welfare. And so traveling through the Indian territories has been a real education for us. And we were simply encouraged by their cordiality, their welcome. Catholic Church that helped settle this area and had a significant influence on benefiting the Indian population. Gallup, New Mexico, one of the major retail areas for the Indian community. plains. New Mexico 126, impassable during inclement weather. We know that up ahead, even though we're on pavement right now, we're going to bump into dirt again. And that's the kind of sign we like. When they said impassable, they meant impassable. These fellows are having to go hand over fist to get over this one. Coco would be proud of our routine here. Oh, we're not advertising Dodges or Chryslers. Trying to put a little bit of show on for our Schwinn High Sierras. These are tough little rigs to ride, man. Hold on to that thing. You get in trouble there. He still doesn't have it. It had hailed down the road, and enough that the fellows could put together a stockpile of artillery. That means they had snowballs or hail balls. We came around the corner. This is cowboy Indian country, and you better believe we were in for a real battle. Hey, something's wrong here. It's too quiet. Look out, we're going to get killed. I can't believe it, man. You just hit me in the ear. That really smarts. Hey, save some of your snowballs for the next group. One more shot. Many nights we're out under the stars. Of course, there's nothing nicer than a good campfire, a little bit of devotional time in the morning, some sharing together. Slow down, guys. You got a bad corner, and your speed is pretty fast. And of course, the staff, I think, have been responsible over the years of really keeping these kids safe. Mailman makes one drop here, his whole route in one stop. Santa Fe, New Mexico, the capital of the state, and it's really a beautiful little capital. You need to go off the highway if you're traveling out this way and pick it up, because they have architecturally really honored the whole spirit of the territory. We had a day and a half in Santa Fe. Of course, you do your typical tourist shopping, the famous Indian and silver and turquoise. Moving now into the plains, across New Mexico and Texas. Pick up the panhandle of Texas. Notice, please do not pick up hitchhikers in this area. Thank you, New Mexico State Hospital. Come on, guys, give me a ride. I slip out of that hospital every now and then. They don't mind. No, I'm sorry, mister. These bikes are just made for one person. I'm sure he was one of them. There's a road now that runs diagonally from the Santa Fe area down to Interstate 40, and so we're moving on a very lonely road. Both of the towns that were mentioned on the map had become ghost towns, so this is the way we brought some diversity into the day. Played submarine with the bicycles. Hey, I bet you can't go in over your head. I bet you can't drown yourself on that bike. This is how tough these old 15 speeds are. You can just keep on pedaling until you go all the way under the water. And if that's not enough, they decided to play bombardier with these things. A local said you better tie ropes onto those bikes because that water is 80 feet deep. Played too long, we wound up running out of daylight. Both towns, as I've already mentioned, became ghost towns some years ago. And so we had to lean on a rancher. Delightful fellow that allowed us to come in and use the facilities that he had retired from Weyerhaeuser Lumber about 5 years ago. His wife had passed away, and he moved out here. And he gave us full run of his ranch. Talked to us a little bit about Indian craft, some biology of the desert. Quite an education. Todd is working on tires all through this film. And that rancher inspired us enough, we decided to sew buttons back on our shirts. And Jeff is a boy that's come to us who is deaf. He's never heard anything before in his life, and he really had a lot to share as he traveled with us 6 weeks across the U.S. Saying goodbye to our rancher friend, his dog Muffin, and I'm sure if we're ever back through this way, he'll welcome us onto the grounds again. And on to Tucumcari. This is a town that's about 2 blocks wide and 10 miles long and has every food franchise ever invented on it. Modern restrooms. Can you see that on the lightly colored building? We're coming now into territory that the ground's getting a little more solid, a little less sand in the soil. Agriculture is becoming more and more common. Here's a frustrated farmer. This fella planted Cadillacs. Bad crop, though. Nothing has grown. Mid-America, Oklahoma and Arkansas. Take a look on the map, the two states through which you'll be traveling. As you can see, the ground is getting more solid now. The bikes roll better. More distance can be covered on the dirt. Couldn't help but want to know what this lady was doing. She said, "Oh, I'm hoeing 40 acres of cotton. My girlfriends go to the spa, but I would rather come out here and work for 2 or 3 weeks." And boy, was she an encouragement. Good evidence of past history. And they still use the wind out here on these plains, but they use it for other reasons now, and that is to crank out electricity. The granary in behind, the grain elevator, suggests to you that they're having success with the crops. Into Oklahoma, this will be our hottest state on the trip. Boy, taking their shoes off and cooling their heels, literally. And you talk about heat. I'll drink to that. Most of the small towns had a swimming pool. They very often invited us in to use the pool. We had to stop and take a look at this Corvette. That's what the guy said. Yeah, you need to go over and look at the patron saint of Oklahoma, Will Rogers. They've put up a beautiful mosaic there built out of granite. And they're starting the second one now, and that'll be in honor of Jim Thorpe, the great Indian athlete. Armadillo, who had been bumped by a car, knocked unconscious, and we picked him up just to see what made him tick. A little bit like our possum up in the Midwest. And Todd's still working on bicycle tires. Little praying mantis saying grace before it takes a bite out of this guy. The best guy to talk to about finding a dirt road would be a grader operator. He pointed us down the way to a road, and we took what we thought was the right turn. I'm sure he said the second road, not the first one. In fact, this doesn't even look like a road. Yeah, he said this one. There's no way he's graded this out in a long time. But the super thing about a bicycle like this is that very often you can make your own road. You don't have to worry about someone going before you. Of course, one of the real important things about our riding coast to coast on a bike is to encourage young men and women in small towns where they really kind of take church activity for granted. And the Wandering Wheels over the years has tried to encourage young people concerning their own church involvement. Chamber of Commerce likes what they do, and they break out the watermelon here. This happens so often for us. Yeah, if I had teeth, I'd do the same thing. Doberman Pinscher has teeth, needle sharp. His friend's teeth have got a little bit old here, but they went and got their friend, Weir Harold, and boy, he came out of the bushes there and in no time flat was escorting us on out of town. I want you guys out of here by sundown. You got it? The map normally is a source of encouragement, especially this far along in the trip, because we're well over halfway now. It's a good feeling to be going downhill. Truck warning grades of 13%. That's steep. In America, if you're going to build a state road, you can't build it any steeper than 7% if you use federal funds. So we're moving on 13% grade roads for 21 miles. And that was one tough tour. And this is in Oklahoma. Whoever thought Oklahoma would have mountains or hills this tough? This is supposed to be the plains. Water works its magic, cooling off their bodies. One kid said, "Boy, I felt like I was going to die." And his friend said, "I was afraid I wouldn't." You never know when you get your neck shaved, so the water's flowing, you better break out the shaving kit. "Hey, Bobby, what are you going to do?" "Oh, I don't know. I think I'll play a little roto-rooter." You get stuck in there, man. Highway department came along, wanted to hire this fellow to clean out the other tubes. He said, "No one of those runs is enough." Our poor dog was looking on. Now, the dog, of course, is just a simple animal, but I'm sure he's a little concerned about his leadership when he sees one of our fellows pull off a trick like that. Beautiful beautiful little chocolate lab, and of course he's made for water, and every time we went in the water swimming, he had to come in and make rescue. Now the idea of this thing, Todd, is to swing out. It's about halfway right there. Let go, man. I can't believe you're going to bump your knee. Talking about knees, if he doesn't get his pants pulled up, he'll never get his knees over that bicycle tube. So we got a little rain. Of course, that's really normally welcome in the summertime. It'll cool off the temperatures. We find down south now that the filling station is a combination grocery store, hardware store, drugstore. Road closed, bridge out. No problem with the dirt bikes. Fat tire bikes go right to the edge, survey the situation, and move right on through it. Into the south now. Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, headed for Savannah. Crossing the Mississippi River. First town we come into will be Greenville, Mississippi. And here we stop to visit with Bob Schwinn, who runs the Schwinn factory down here. They invited us in, gave us some refreshment, and we had the opportunity of seeing how the bikes were made. As we travel through the south, we'll be moving through mostly smaller towns and older communities. Slower pace, a delightful part of America. All Bear Bryant. This is his birthplace. One of America's modern heroes, a football coach who's won more college games than any other football coach. A good example of the small little burgs through which we travel during the summer in the south. Most of them quiet little hollows. And of course, that store that I just talked about, filling station, hardware store, drugstore, grocery combination, young and old came out to greet us. Yeah, I think there's a dirt road down the way here. In fact, I think you just slip on down there and it'll say pavement ends, and you can move very carefully across dirt for several miles, so we were pleased with that information. The tin roof, the front porch, very symbolic of the South, and of course, boy meets girl, almost automatic relationships. This kid just graduated from college. 4 years. It looks like the thing he learned in college was how to blow one bubble a year. Here he's showing you how you can blow 4 bubbles one inside the other. His mother's really proud of that. You mean for that I spent $40,000? Come on, Doug, one more. There he goes. 4 bubbles, one inside the other. Of course, on the dirt bike, you not only can beat the train across the tracks, but if you want to, you can turn the bike right down the tracks and race it on into the next town. The bike can stand it if your body can. New food to the Wandering Wheels, and I think to a lot of people, is a crawfish. This farmer here was growing rice, and the crawfish were eating up most of his crops. He put together a 40-acre pond and now raises crawfish. Makes more money with this crop than he did with rice. Gave us a gunny sack full. He said, just boil them up and they turn red. Pop them open and you'll love the taste. Like little shrimp or scallops. Trees and the flowers and bushes in full bloom in the South. The ever-famous tin roof and front porch. You like the pace in the South because they have time to talk. And Jeff, who I've mentioned before, speaks well but can't hear a thing, is taking on some good conversation here, telling the people about the trip. Lumber in the South, we didn't realize it was so dominant down here. All day long, the sound of chainsaws, trucks moving by us with enormous logs, the smell of paper mills and plywood factories. And we just had to show this in the film because this was a surprise to us, how important lumber was down here. DeSoto Caverns, owned by a friend of ours. Kind of fun to know someone who owns something that's on a state map. You get a good idea now of how hilly the South is as we make our way now across Alabama. See the fat tires there? Much wider than your normal highway bike. These big trucks go screaming by, and of course, a little intimidating, but you learn to get used to them. You watch the disturbance they create here with the bushes, and that's just about the way they tug at your body when they go by. Kudzu. That's the green stuff that looks like ivy. We ask, where does it come from? How come we see so much of it? Well, they brought it in from Japan to hold down the topsoil. They said that stuff grows so fast that if you want to get even with a neighbor in the south, you just plant that in his backyard some night, and it'll take over by morning. Half the world's problems being settled right here on the front porch. And on into Georgia, our last state. We've seen a lot of shanties. The Southern Mansion is still a thing to behold in the South. Young fella here traveling with us, Scotty, he just got his second lieutenant rank from the Marines, and he's sharing his story with young people across America. Running in front of asphalt now. Roads will soon be paved. That fella could share some stories. The gal on the left here, what a delight. Stopped to talk to her and asked her what she did all day long. She was 80 years old. I said, Mister, I basically just pray for people. And boy, I said, you pray for us, will you, for the next few days? And she said, I will. And I knew we were in good hands. And that was very much the spirit of the South. A lot of cars honking to the kids. They seemed to know we were about something more important than just a Saturday afternoon ride. What's all that honking about anyway? Honk, honk. See the cake pan on the back of the bike? Well, that's his dish out of which you'll eat. Never know when you're going to be fed. Yeah, I don't mind your food, guys, but having a dress like you is too much. Metter, Georgia. They have a bumper sticker here that says everything is better and better. And the thing that was so impressive about this town were the front porches. And it seemed like you weren't anybody at all unless you had a beautiful front porch in which you could entertain half the community. It seemed to be so representative of the architecture of the homes in the South. The evangelist, who has headquarters down here in Metter, encourages us to come over and see his chapel. Really a grand guy, Mr. Guido. And we stopped to take a look at his chapel. He said, is that your dog? And we said, yeah. He said, bring that dog into church. And boy, I knew that preacher was all right when he invited Zion in. Savannah, Georgia. You've made it all the way across America on this dirt bike. You've done something at this particular point in time that, to our knowledge, no one else has done before in a group, and that's ride the dirt bikes coast to coast. We'll take in the city, visit some high spots, rest that night, have a little bit of a celebration, and the next morning up bright and early and move to the ocean. Come back across America with me, starting in California, crossing Arizona, through New Mexico, a little bit of Texas, Oklahoma and Arkansas, and on through Mississippi and Alabama, Georgia, and then finally on the last day, 25 miles from Savannah, Georgia, down to Savannah Beach, where you'll close out your tour. You've traveled now 3,000 miles on the fat tire bike, 1,300 miles of it in dirt. You've seen America in an unusual way. You've met people that very often won't ever be met by the general public, as you've gone out of your way to see the small guy, the people who live off the highway. Coast to coast with the wandering wheels, mission accomplished. The